To show appreciation to all subscribers and all members of Develop PHP, I just wanted to make a nice special application for you guys, one that you guys have really been asking for a long time. It's how to make one of those liquid fluid websites that repositions menus and certain elements depending on how the user resizes their browser. You can see I'm in Internet Explorer right now, and you can use Safari or Firefox, whatever you're in, any browser it'll work in. And if you wanted your elements to snap to the very corners and not have any space there, you can just set the margins in your the output HTML file. Open Dreamweaver and set the margins to 0, the left, right, top, and bottom. And these elements won't have any. You won't see any little spaces on the edges there. But they are set, and I made them, programmed them to where they will stick to each corner. And this little guy up here is just a little sliver or a little section, and he is set to auto expand to any width that the screen resolution might be set to upon resize. That's how it works. And I've heard a lot of names for this, like fluid, liquid, all kind of crazy names, but I think I'm going to rename it right now and call it True Fit. True Fit Flash Website. This is a True Fit, any browser size, any window size website. True Fit. That's what we're going to call it from now on. True Fit Flash Website. Hope you enjoy it, and thanks for subscribing, and thanks for coming to the site, Develop PHP, and becoming active in the forums and all that stuff. It's really cool. We're all a bunch of big dorks. Alright! Okay, let's get right to it. I'm working in Flash CS3, but you can be in Flash CS4. I'm going to create new ActionScript 3 project. And now let's go down to the size, click that, and make it to what I think about the smallest monitors people would be using on old systems that would be viewing my site. So I'm setting it to 8 by 6, and I view at 14 by 9, 1400 by 900, and there's some monitors out there that are up to 1600 wide, but this will accommodate for all monitor sizes, but you really just want to set it to the smallest that you think that people would be accessing your site with. And don't worry about the large ones, because those will be accounted for with the code that we use. Let's set the frame rate to 24 or something that'll give good animations, and press OK. And now go into your publish settings, and this is the most important part of this that nobody ever tells anybody. And you go to match movie, change it to % on the dimensions setting, make sure it's 100 by 100, press OK. Now in the help file, I looked around for a while and I didn't see where Adobe told anybody about. They show you the code for scaling your objects, but they don't show you how to set your browser. When you press Control Enter, it would work when you export that way, but when you would set your when you resize the browser, it would never work, because you have to set that setting inside the publish settings. Okay, so now we have let's create another layer, and let's name the one on top ActionScript 3.0, and the one on the bottom Site Elements. And yours can be on different layers. You can put your different elements on different layers, whatever you want to do. I'm just going to lump them all together in that one layer for this example. Alrighty, so I have an 800 by 600 rectangle is my stage size. So first thing I'm going to do is create a movie clip and create all the elements now that would be in my site, my simulated site. Let's make this rectangle, just draw out a rectangle. I'm going to make it 420 by 300. and maybe that's a picture gallery, or maybe that's a video, or maybe that's just your whole site. Convert to a symbol, movie clip, and we'll call it frame. Good universal name, you put whatever you want in it. It's okay. Down in the movie clip instance name, we're going to put frame. Now it has an instance name on it. We can connect to it with the code here that we're going to put on the ActionScript 3 layer there. Alrighty, let's go inside, make it look kind of decent. First, let's give it a gradient. Give it a gradient, fill, and then we'll transform the gradient around. There we go, that looks good. And now just to note, this movie clip can be anywhere you want. And the mathematics, the equations, will be placing it on stage. So you don't have to worry about where it is really. But I'm going to set it up to where I would want it to look like when it's rendered out in the browser. But realistically, or for all practical matters, they could all be lumped together in a corner, but they will all be placed in the correct place when it comes render time. Okay, now in my example, I'm gonna show you a few really cool things that nobody ever really goes into when they do this type of tutorial for Flash and scaling and full screen and all that, and accommodating for all monitor sizes and all screen resolutions. They fail to go in depth enough to show you really what you need to know, and I'm gonna try to. And I'm also gonna do a part 2. If you guys want to see a part 2, just comment, rate the video high, comment, say good things about it. You know, give me the will to go on, and then I'll put out a part 2 that'll go more in depth if you want, and show animations and all kind of cool things when these things are being repositioned on screen. You can put tween effects on them. Okay, so let's call this little rectangle, let's put some text on it. Let's call this, say we had an MP3 player sitting there. Now yours would be an actual MP3 player, or whatever you wanted there. Now I'm going to highlight both, right click them, convert to symbol, just call it MP3 player. In the library, movie clip, OK. Now let's give it an instance name of MP3 player. Now we can connect to that in our code. Let's put it right in the corner where we'd want it to be. But like I said, these can be all jumbled up in a corner together, or even way off of the black area there. But they will land in the correct places when it comes render time. Alrighty. Now let's a couple more things so we can really maximize this demonstration, so you guys can get really good understanding out of it. Because I just looked yesterday online for these kind of tutorials about full screen Flash and scaling the elements on your stage, not scaling them, but moving them and positioning them when you are let's transform this. When a user is resizing his window, or if you just want to have it to where any size website or any size monitor, your elements reposition themselves to fit nicely. Okay, so let's make one more. Let's just copy this one, Control C, Control V, put this guy up here, just put him at 0, and not so wide. Maybe it can be really slim, like 20. say 20 by 40. And let's say this you want it to be a menu bar. We're going to make this thing through code expand the whole width of the monitor resolution, the screen display size. So let's right click that one, convert that to symbol, and let's name that, let's say that was a menu bar BG, menu bar background. And let's give it an instance name of menu bar BG. Now we connected that in the code, and you see how I'm positioning my elements. I'm going to show you how to stick all of these in these corners. No matter how big the browser window, no matter how much the user resizes the window, while they resize it, these items are going to stick to each of their respective corners and not flinch. Okay, so this is the last one. Convert to symbol, movie clip, and let's name this one, let's say this was just a menu bar. So we'll call it menu 2. And okay, and give this an instance name, menu 2. Now we can connect to that one in the code. They all have instance names. That's it. Now we can code this puppy out. Let's see. Let me make sure. Real quick before we do that, I'm gonna go into these movie clips and just put some text in there with the rectangle. It's gonna be more identifiable. And let's call this main section of this application. That sounds good. And make it a little bigger. And let's go ahead and put one in here too. A little text line saying, let's just call this other little menu. Maybe you got another little menu down there with buttons or something. Make that a little smaller, a little whiter, right there. Beautimous. Okay, now we're ready to go. Let's do some coding. Press the highlight the ActionScript 3 layer, keyframe 1, press F9, open the actions panel, and this is where we type our code in to connect to the items on stage. Alright, first thing we're going to do is we're going to have to set the variable for the stage, and they show you this in the help file. So if you look in your help file, you can find examples on how to do some of this stuff. Say this dot stage. That's how we put the stage into a variable. And in the ActionScript help file, they show a different method. They refer to one of your stage objects right here instead of claiming this. And I don't know if I agree with that or not. I don't think I do agree with that. I think that's not very necessary and might screw things up for you. Say scale mode equals, and this is stage scale mode. Let's see if it all turns green. I'm good. I think that's all caps in it. Yep. Okay. This is .no scale. If you have your code help on, you'll see these things come in, and you'll see all the little options you can use in place of the ones that I'm using here. So it's good to have the code syntax help on. Now we'll say my stage dot align. We'll set the alignment. Like I said, all of these 3 lines are similar lines. It's in the help file. Stage align dot top left, and there's other options you can pick here too, but I'm just going to say top left. semicolon. Okay, now the variable for the stage is all set. Now all we need is a function that's going to fire off every time the user makes any resize of their browser. They can just drag it up and down, resize their browser, and this all these elements are going to stick. I'm going to make them stick to where they are in each corner, no matter how big the resolution of the monitor accessing the file is. Okay, so let's set that function, and then all we'll need is a listener. Now in the function we're going to have lots of mathematical equations. So let's say function, let's just name it resize display, because that's what it's going to be doing, sort of. And this is event colon event, and it's going to be the resize event. That's what event that's going to be referring to. The listener we set up down below, you'll see in a little while. Okay, so now we have a nice nest set up. I opened my curly brace and closed my curly brace here, and now inside of the function is where we code all of these things we want to happen when the user resizes the browser window, whether they're in Internet Explorer, Firefox, Safari. Should work in every single browser. Okay, so let's claim. Well, first we're going to claim a couple of variables, and then we're going to use those variables in our mathematical equations to make the things happen that we want. So the first one will be, we want to find out the stage's size upon when the user resizes. We have to find that number. So we'll say, we'll call that SWF width, and this is going to be an integer number equals, grab this here, the stage object, or the stage variable, and say my stage dot stage width. Now this claims that number into this variable. So this variable is actually a number. We're going to be using this word in our mathematical equations, but it's actually a number. Okay, var, next one is going to be SWF height. So actually we can just take this whole line, since this one's going to be very similar, and just change this here to height. Height, Height. Now we have SWF height and width. We're going to need those numbers inside of our equation. Let's go down 2 lines now and type in var, and this will be the variable for the number of the offset of the menu 2. This little menu here, we got to offset this, we got to offset this, and the way we're going to set up the code, it won't matter how big these objects are. Any object you have sitting that you want in this corner, no matter if it's this tall, 200 pixels high, or as tall as what I have here, it'll snap to the very corner. The way we're going to set up the code, same goes for this, no matter how big it is, and the same goes for this and that. So we got to do some smart variable setup in the beginning here, so we can have some mean awesome code. So we'll call this menu 2's Y position. Menu 2 Y position colon, this is just a number, and we'll say equals, let's move that cursor, SWF height. So we gotta have the height here. Let's grab that number or that value, SWF height minus that menu 2, that little other menu, menu 2 minus its height, and that's how we do the offset. So no matter what the height is on that little menu 2, it'll snap to the corner bottom where it should be. It's a beautiful thing. Now the next one is going to be similar, and this is going to be for the our MP3 player's Y position. And this one will be, just change the name here to the MP3 player's instance name, and this should say MP3 player Y position. MP3 player Y pose is equal to the stage's height, no matter what size the user resized their window to, minus the MP3 player's height itself. And that's the offset for that one. Now we'll need an offset for a couple more things. So we'll just take this, and we're going to get the X position now for the MP3 player. Now we didn't have to do an X position for the menu too, this little guy, because its X position is just going to be snapped to the left, all the way to the left over here. So we don't have to make its X move anywhere. It's always going to be in the right X position. We just have to make it move up and down correctly. But this one, we have to make it move up and down correctly and left and right correctly. So that's why we're going to claim the X position here. So we say X pose, and this will be width instead of height. So we just grab SWF width up here, replace it for that one, and this will be width. And I think that's correct. Looks good to me. When we publish out, we'll see if we have errors. Okay, now we're going to set a variable that's going to be for the frame, the main body section of our application, the main section, that movie clip. So this will be frames Y pose. The frames Y position is a number, and that's going to be equal to, similar to this one here. We'll set it up like that. SWF height. This should be frame. There we go. Now the next one is going to be very similar. And for this one we also have to have the X and Y, because we have to move it up and down and back and forth, side to side. So X pose, and this will be width. And this would also say width, so we'll grab that one, put it here. And I grab other ones by double clicking them, press Ctrl C, and double click the target where I want to replace, press Ctrl V. It's very easy. Okay, so frame X number is with frame height. Yes, very good. Alright, now we just need a few more things. We're almost done. So frame dot Y. Okay, so really now we're gonna start setting up, making the frame. First I'm gonna set up to make this frame be in the correct position. Then we'll do the mathematical equations for all these other items. And this one, remember I said we're gonna make this stretch. Its width is going to stretch to be to fill the whole area. You'll see what I mean. Okay, so let's work on the frame first. So we'll say frame dot Y position is going to be equal to this frame dot Y pose. And then we're going to say divided by 2. And this is the centering code. When you say divided by 2 there, it's going to center it. And it already has its offset. The frame Y pose here made our offset, so we know we're right in the center. Now let's just take that, go one more down, and say frame.x. This will be the X pose, and that's that. Very easy. Now I'm going to take the menu bar and move it to where it needs to go every time the window is resized. So menu bar BG is our instance name for the object we want to stretch on top to span the whole width of the the user's screen. So we'll say menu bar bg dot width. I almost forgot that. Equals the SWF width. It's a very simple equation there. Now the next one is going to be the menu 2, the little other menu, the little guy at the left corner bottom. So menu 2 dot y position, and all we gotta do is move this little guy up and down, remember? So we just say menu y pose right there. Take that one, put it here, and just a couple more left for the MP3 player. MP3 player. Now we'll do the y position, x position for that one. Dot y equals y position. And remember, we already have our offsets made up here. And the next one, very similar. MP3 player x position. So we make this x pose. And I think that's it. That's all that needs to be inside of your resize display function. So every time the window, hey, let's go ahead and put it in our event listener now. Very important part here. So we'll grab the my stage variable here. We'll say my stage dot add event listener. And this is event dot resize. A lot of times when you make listeners, they're for buttons, but this is for a resize event. Sometimes you make, click, roll over and roll out. This is very similar, but it's for the resize event. Put our function name in there, close off the parenthesis and the semicolon. Now I do believe we have a working application, folks. Event.resize, resize display. Let's see if we have an error-free code. Now let's press F12 to render it in the browser and not Control Enter. And it looks like, let's see what happens. There it is. So the bar on top stretches. I don't like the way it's acting though. Let's see if we can change that. Let's make this thing wider. Maybe about 200. Now let's press F12 and see what it looks like. Ah, that's better. Now it looks like a bar. It's like I wanted. Okay, so let's get this thing here where it fits in. You can see it. Okay, so that's my screen. Let's say that was maxed out. And I grab the corners. Let's see. Let's say I resize up. You can see everything staying where it should. Snap to the edges. And if you wanted to have this in the very, very edge, you just go into your HTML file after it's rendered out. You set the CSS, the margins, to 0. It's very easy to do. And like I said, I'm going to be doing a part 2 to this. If you want to see a part 2, you can just rate this comment real good and give me the enthusiasm I need to set up a part 2, and I'll do it for you. I'll show you how to animate all these things as you resize them. Look how nice that is, huh? So as you resize, as the user resizes, or no matter what monitor size the user is using to view your application, it's always going to be set up right. So somebody on 800 by 600 might see it like we set it up on stage, and then somebody with a larger monitor like mine would see it like that. And it's really cool. Everything just stays where it should. And so with these examples, which is further than I've seen anybody else go with this kind of stage tutorial in Flash, you can have all the elements you want stay exactly where you want them to stay. And if you wanted things to get bigger on resize, that's easy to do as well. Okay, so like I said, if you want a part 2 to see how to tween these things on resize, instead of just making it snap to, it'll tween it and make it fly to that new coordinates. Okay, we'll see you guys next lesson.